Made it out to OTA number 10. I'll give you my impressions of that. But more importantly, had a roundtable with the assistant coaches from the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're going live here on Locked On Jaguars. Check it out.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure you tap in each and every day in that location, whether you watch or listen, and we'll be there ready to go. Today's show, of course, is brought to you by none other than FanDuel. That is correct. FanDuel, right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Shout out to the everydayers for joining us, and shout out to those people that are here for the first time. I hope I give you the reason to come back. I'm going to let you know what today's show is about. It's a theme. Y'all have heard me talk about messaging and communication. That's what we're going to talk about today in the third segment, and why I believe that's so important. It's important because we went to the round table today with the assistant coaches, and boy, oh boy, did they drop some jewels on us. First, I'll give you the impression, though, in the first segment of OTAs. I'm not going to talk formations. You know, we don't do that too much, especially with OTAs. I will tell you this. Jaguars are fast as hell at wide receiver. If y'all didn't know that already. Brian Thomas Jr. got clocked at over 22 miles per hour last year. I think it was in the Colts game. They legit got 3-4-3 guys at wide receiver. So one thing I will tell you this is, while when we first got to practice this morning here in Jacksonville, or OTAs, we were inside on the facility, the Miller Electric facility, the indoor facility. The whole thing is the Miller Electric complex. But you had all the players. They were 11 on 11 going offense and defense. They were doing some walkthrough stuff, basically showing what plays look like, doing a sort of a walkthrough, and then showing what you're going to see. I saw one rep, and this was brought to my attention, where Greg Udinski, the offensive coordinator, they lined up. It was a two wide receiver set. There was Travis as well as BTJ. He pulled Travis and said, or did he pull Brian? It was one of them. He said, no, don't go with this group, go with the next one. And the dude said, I wonder why he did that. I say, because what he's doing is he's watching them individually, and if they're on the same drill from where he's standing, he can't watch them both. So I'm thinking that he wanted to instruct one, and then the other ran with the other group, and he wanted to instruct him. And I think that is extremely important that we know that they're doing that. And one of the reasons they're also doing that is maybe that's when Travis is at rest. That's why Dyami Brown is so important to this team. And Dyami Brown is as important to this team as another wide receiver in that rotation, that whoever the corner is that's going to be playing when Travis isn't playing, that guy's super important too, whether that be Jarian Jones or whoever, right? It'd be super, super important. And if they're not in nickel, or if they are in nickel, but Travis isn't in the game and they leave Jordan Lewis outside, it makes it so much important. It tells me that every single thing that they're doing, they have a reason for it. And the reason for, let me check that. Everybody that does anything has a reason to do it, right? But their reason seems very intentional. And I will let you know that in talking to the coaches later on, we can tie it all together as to what they're really, really doing. But yeah, they look a lot faster. They're still in shorts. One of the good things that these coaches have said is something that I have echoed here. And I'm not just calling it good because I said it. I'm just letting you know that it's something that we have said here a lot on our podcast. They said we're playing touch football. We're in shorts. A lot of this stuff you ain't going to be able to tell. Like, everybody's doing everything that they're supposed to do, and they're doing it exceptionally. They have a team full of guys that are like, what time's practice? And then guys are showing up early. Guys are proactively seeking out what time is the next time we're all going to get together and figure out how we're doing things. So everyone is really learning the scheme. Everyone is really focusing on being in the classroom. One coach I did talk to was Bill Sheridan. He is a senior defensive assistant. He spoke about how everyone loves Anthony Campanile. And Camp doesn't necessarily come across as, and we spoke briefly on the practice field today. I mean, really briefly. He doesn't come across as the Mr. Rogers coach's guy, if you will. He's the one on the team that if there's a coach that was going to get in a bar fight, and I'm not talking about his character. I'm just talking about if you had to fight one guy on that staff, he probably would be the last guy you chose. And the personality is very Northeastern. He's a very New Jersey type guy. But the thing about him is his work ethic is very blue collar. His approach is very intelligent, also very blue collar. And Bill Sheridan said this about Camp. He's known him for a long time, of course, going all the way back to college. Bill Sheridan was on staff with Tom Coughlin in New York, man. He's been coaching forever. I think he ran through Boston College a couple of times. He says he's smart. He says his parents did a good job. He says he's an outstanding individual. And he says he couldn't see any reason why anybody wouldn't be enthusiastic about being coached by Anthony Campanile, but it's still good to see that they all love him. And this is what he said after that, and they should. So there's a theme here developing with these coaches, and I'll tell you what it is when I talk about some of the things individually that we said. But the main guys I'm going to focus on, there's two. One of them is, well, let me preface it like this. I didn't talk to quarterbacks coach Spencer Whipple very long, but I did tell him I'm old enough to remember when your dad was a rookie. He started laughing. I said, yeah. I don't know if you're laughing at the fact that you're trying to picture your dad being a rookie in the NFL, or if you're laughing at the fact that I'm old enough to remember when your dad was a rookie. So, offensive line coach Shaun Starrett was super impressive. They all were. I spoke to Shaun Starrett. I spoke to wide receivers coach Edgar Bennett. I had the chance to talk to linebackers coach Tim Lukabu. Shout out to Coach Tim. Queens gets the money. There you go. He's from Queens. And Ron Milas. I'm going to give you all those conversations and tell you some things that I was able to extract from these conversations. And by the way, I'm not the only member of the media that did this. All of them were there. We all got a lot of the same information. So I'm going to give it to you in a way that it was received to me and give you my spiel the way we do it here on Locked On Jaguars. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Man, the NBA playoffs in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Major momentum shifts and can't miss momentums, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Somebody's going to win a title this year in the NBA that hasn't won one before. You're going to have a new superstar. Will it be in OKC or Indiana? You need to find out, man. I'm telling you. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. I'm Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast. You can find us daily. Wherever you get your podcast, make sure you tap in. Make sure, whether you watch or listen, you tap in each and every day. All right, Coaches Roundtable. Let's get to the good stuff. First person I spoke to was Edgar Bennett, and Demetrius Harvey is my witness. Edgar Bennett sat down at the table. So this is like speed dating, right? You get the coaches, they sit at the table, and you're there. Every 15 minutes, you kind of want to adjust, but you can go freely amongst any of those tables and ask a question, introduce yourself. Edgar Bennett sat down, came in, he spoke to somebody. Edgar Bennett looked over at me, and I'm telling you, Demetrius is my witness. Edgar kind of stood up in his chair and leaned towards me with a smile on his face. I said, yeah, we know each other, right? He didn't know from where. I reminded him that we graduated the same year and played against each other, and brought up a basketball game. I played at the former Forest High School, which is now known as West Side, and I brought up a basketball game. There was damn near a riot at the end of the game at off 103rd Street. It was a riot because one of their players, who was a alumni, he also went to Florida State. His name was Grady Ross, and I talked to Grady a couple of years ago. Grady got kicked out of the game. And Grady got kicked out of the game for elbowing me in my throat. And Edgar said, "Man, you bringing back memories." Yeah, I'm bringing back memories because they almost had to call a SWAT team to get them out of there. You'll be coming over to Sweetwater and hitting me in my throat and not think that, I'm just saying. It was just the way it was back then, but we smiled and laughed and had some good memories because guys that came from our eras, a lot of us not around, man, and they went in some different directions. But to see this man be a Super Bowl champion and also a coach for damn near 3 decades, or at least 2 decades, it just makes me feel good and inside. And then the fact that he came over there and he kind of looked and squinted his eyes, and then he started standing up. He's like, "I know this dude somewhere." And we had a chance to share that moment. So it was really, really good. One of the things I asked him, though, I reminded him of a scenario. And I remember when I did radio, Jimmy Smith was in with us. And Jimmy talked about a ball that Mark Brunell overthrew, but he went and got it. He turned those jets on, and you see guys today do it, guys like Jamar Chase, and you saw Antonio Brown do it. But Jimmy was like one of those guys that his superpower was when the ball was in the air, he could increase his speed while the DB was looking at him. You can't run looking at him the same way. Jimmy did that. And I reminded Edgar that when they came to the bench, Jimmy told me that Keenan went up to Mark Brunell and said, "I was open." This is on a touchdown throw. So my question to Edgar Bennett was, how do you teach your receivers to be greedy and want the ball and want to be the guy that is leading the team and tell them to be team players at the same time? Because wide receivers can be divas. And now you have Brian Thomas Jr., who I keep saying he's top 7 and he ain't number 7 in the NFL, and people think I'm crazy. Y'all only think I'm crazy because they only did it 1 year and y'all waiting for him to keep doing it over and over. I'm telling you, barring injury, he's going to do it over and over. There's nothing that tells me catching balls from Matt Jones for most of the season, well, at least half of the season, and playing with a quarterback that had that line and they couldn't run the ball and the defense couldn't stop anybody. It kills me to try to think, how could this dude even put up these stats and these numbers, right? So I'm thinking that's going to continue, right? But will it continue with Travis Hunter? Remember, he was the number 2 pick overall. You gave up extra compensation to get him. That means you loved him. That means you wanted him here to be a part of the Jaguars ecosystem. How do you keep them from being selfish? He says it goes back to knowing who the people are, basically. It goes back to understanding that they work hard. And this is something that I heard 3 times. Liam Cohen's message is team first. So whatever is best for the team is going to happen, is going to matter the most. And the fact that both Brian Thomas Jr., all 3, Dyami Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., and Travis Hunter, and the main 2 we're talking about are the 2, Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr. The fact that their personalities are the way that they are really, really does help the case for this team to be going where they're going, because nobody cares about individual numbers and you're losing. Who cares that Trayvon got 10 sacks? All they care about is did the team win. People didn't start talking crap about Trayvon the first year because they went to the playoffs and won a playoff game. Then when he statistically gets better, they start talking crap about him. The reason why they do that is because people only care about winning. And I think that is the thing that's going to heal and fix all of these situations that we're wondering how they're going to work. Another theme that I heard today when talking to Ron Miles and talking to Edgar Bennett, defensive backs coach as well as wide receivers coach, I was very, very curious as to how do we untrain ourselves from hearing the things that we've been hearing forever, that you need reps, you need reps, you need reps, you need reps. How is Travis Hunter going to play, not against regular people, but against great players when they know he hasn't repped? Ron Miles gave me a great answer. Well, when he hasn't repped as much because he's playing on the other side of the ball. Ron Miles, the secondary coach, gave me a great answer. Ron Miles said he will have those reps. The reason why he's going to have those reps is because he's going to have mental reps, because he comes into our room every single day. So this tells me that this tells me that I don't know why somebody on this live is talking about the Colts, by the way. You want me to talk about the Colts? I'll talk about them. I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. All right, you ready? The Colts stinking. They're the worst team in the league. That's all I got to say. All right, so I'm gonna come in here and talk about the Colts. We talk about the Jaguars. So let me go ahead and tell you this: the mental reps is very, very important. That also tells me that that's his way of saying he's not really missing any time, which also tells me that he's in this building more than anybody else, which might not necessarily be true, but it tells me he needs, if he's going to be spending that much time with both, then I think he will be there all day. And I don't think Travis Hunter has a problem with being there all day. And the reason why is because I think what he wants to do more than anything is play football. And all of these coaches rave about it. Now, let's get to the good stuff. And y'all know y'all want to talk about it. The second person I talked to those two, but they were the first and the last. The second person I talked to was Shaun Starrett. And he's the person that's going to be on this thumbnail because I was super, super impressed by him. I was impressed by them all, and we'll hit that in segment 3 when we talk about messaging and communication. However, this particular coach, boy, did he speak my language. And when I tell you he spoke my language, we were sitting there, and maybe if I could cut it up off my phone. I didn't have a time to do it before I did this live because it's so late. I wanted to make sure I got you guys some content. Just maybe I'll try to get this thing cut up tomorrow. He smiled when I asked him a question. I can't even really remember what question it was. But he smiled and he said, basically, I asked him, I said, you smiling, what you laughing for, man? He said, because I'll do that kind of stuff. I'll humanize the situation more than you would imagine and more than maybe some people are comfortable with. But he smiled and he said, he closed his eyes and said, because we were just talking about that this morning. And does that feel good to know? Yes, because it doesn't make me seem smart. I'm not worried about that. Trust me, anybody that knows that they're smart, they're not worried about people thinking they're smart. What it helps me realize is that the questions and the topics and the things that I discuss every day here with you guys on Locked On Jaguars are sometimes things that they're discussing in that building. And to me, that's important because I've always said I do these podcasts to try to make people smarter. When I'm asking these questions, that's a good question. That's a good question. You know, we were thinking about that. That means that my finger that's on the pulse of this team I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I'm in the direction. I'm in the place where I'm having topics on a daily basis of things that they're actually discussing. So that helped me. That helped me realize, wait, just keep doing what you're doing. I know it's all about entertainment, but for me, it is particularly important on this podcast, and I've said it over and over again, that I help us understand and try to make each other smarter. While admitting I don't know it all because I'm not in the building, but to sort of use, this is a term I learned from my man James Stewart, Big Game James, deductive reasoning, to come up with ideas about things that people can use as tangible. So then when you see it on the field, you go, there it is right there. There's no greater feeling in the world to me. Even more so better than when a coach tells me that I'm in his wheelhouse, like what happened today. There's no better feeling to me than when a fan spends their 30 minutes every day listening to this podcast to end up finding out that it's something that they needed to hear. Right? So I'm going to get to it. I'm going to tell you some of the things that he said. This is me coming up with something that other people heard. And I made sure, I think it was DeRocco from ESPN, Jax.com's Demetrius Harvey, and there was one other person there. I can't quite put my finger on who. Oh, it was Jamal from News for Jax. They asked me what Shaun Starrett said about Chime Edoga, the Jaguars offensive lineman that was signed in free agency from Dallas. The first thing I asked was, I asked Chuma Edoga, I asked him, I said, you guys got a lot of guys that are versatile, mix and match. That's a good thing. But are you just trying to figure it out? Because so far I've seen Patrick McCarry lined up at right guard. And then I looked at his splits last year from where he played 4 of the 5 positions on the offensive line. He played left guard, left tackle, center, right tackle. He had 0 snaps at right guard. So my question was obviously, why right guard? If you didn't see us, what he did, what he said, we didn't make that choice. It kind of just happened. I'm going to stop right there. He says his skill set showed him. He said the one thing he said, he was watching Baltimore's tape. I don't know when he was watching it. I just know he was watching the tape. And he said every time somebody would get hurt, regardless of where it was on the line, the first thing was to bring a dude in to play McCarry's position, and McCarry would go play that other guy's position. So that's a superpower. The superpower isn't just that he can physically do it. The superpower is that mentally he has the capacity to flip that switch and go from doing one thing, and his muscle memory tells him to do something else. He says the entire team is like that. That's when we got to this gym, and I'm going to drop it for you real quick before I tease segment 3. He says, like Chuma Udoga, we brought him in here. He's played all over, but we had him at left guard, and then we moved him out to right tackle. And he's done a great job. Mia O'Brien, I believe, then asked him, what's the thing about Walker Little you really love? He says his consistency. And then he said, what about Anton? He says, Anton's doing a nice job for us. Kind of sounded like Doug Peterson when he said that. But then he said this. We just need him to get a little bit more consistent. Anybody in the media know what that means? I know y'all do. I'm going to just say from his mouth, it means exactly what he said. I'm going to tell you at the top of segment 3 why in my brain, he didn't say exactly what he said. In my head, he said something else. I'll tell you exactly what that is in just a second. All right, live here on Locked on Jaguars, segment 3. We talked about OTA impressions, and we've been discussing the coaches roundtable. And they gave me some jewels, and I'm about to drop one on you. When asked about versatility, he mentioned Chuma Udoga playing left guard, and then we put him at right tackle, which I noticed at practice that he was alternating. They were all alternating. By the way, he says with all 10 guys that they have when they're too deep, he feels comfortable. He can send anybody out there and go play. That's a good thing because they have gone from, and I mentioned the previous administration, and I said, I don't want to tie you down to anything that they did, but the previous administration would have guys who hadn't proven anything, hadn't had a lot of starts, but had a lot of potential. And they kind of used 4 of those 5 backup spots as a place for developmental prospects. They're not doing that here. The Jaguars over the last few years with a different administration, they did that at defensive end last year when Miles Cole, a 7th round pick, was your third guy. That's almost like wanting that to happen, right? And we'll talk about the communication part when it comes to competition in just a second. That's like wanting something to happen. You can want it to happen all you want to, but you better be prepared in case it doesn't. And the Jaguars did not do that enough. So I used to get upset when we talked about guys hedging their bets, but what it is it's competition. So I'll tell you what he said. He was asked about Udoga. He said he saw that he moved out to right tackle. Then when he was asked about Walker Little at left tackle, the one word or his first impression, he says consistency. The next thing, he was asked by Mia O'Brien of 1010XL, what are your impressions of Anton? He said he's doing a nice job, but he just has to become more consistent. Combine that with the fact that they moved Chuma Udoga from initially playing left guard and backing up Ezra Cleveland to going out now and splitting reps with Anton Harrison. What do I get from that? I get that Anton Harrison is in a battle for his starting position. That's what I get. And this is why I've been telling people that's been inking these folks all in these spots, and the Jaguars haven't even updated their depth chart. Anton Harrison has a fight and a battle on his hands, and there are 5 or 6 media dudes that absolutely agree with me. It is about competition. Mia talked to him about Ezra Cleveland, and Ezra Cleveland was like saying something like to the effect, I don't want to put words in people's mouth. It's like we're always, you're always looking out to see if they want to replace you. Foye Oluokun said something the same way during minicamp. Foye said because of his route to get to the NFL, he believes they're always looking to replace him. Shaun Starrett said that, well, Ezra's not wrong. It's not about Ezra, but it's just a professional reality in the National Football League. They're always looking for the next guy. They have to. This is what it is. This is a game of attrition. They're gladiators. People get banged up. Folks get hurt. You better be looking for the next guy. If not, you'll be looking for your next job if you don't have the next guy and something happens to the starter. He said that's exactly right. The component and the part of that is called competition. One of my things that I said last year were folks love to hold on to guys just because they're familiar with them. You bring this dude in and here they come saying, oh, what about him? I'm not what about anybody from a 4-13 team unless he's been here 1 or 2 years and he has a big old contract extension or something. But I'm not what about this guy in anything that's 4-13. And what we have to understand is we don't know what makes the tide rise. We don't know what makes the boat rise in that water and what makes the boat. I'm talking about the boat being a football team and the one that is trying to compete for something. What happens is, and what makes that what it is and what makes those, that rise very important is the competition that goes on. And when the competition goes on, guys and names they get replaced. It's another part of the communication and the messaging I like, and I'll touch on that in the last 2 minutes here. Every coach sounds just alike, but it doesn't sound like they sound alike because they learned their talking points. It sounds like they're here because they're like-minded. And the talking points is easy because it's what they believe. Messaging, communication. They had these roundtables before. They didn't go quite like this. Liam Cohen said something, Edgar Bennett said something, and Ron Myler said something. And this is what I'll share with you when I'm on my way out. For anybody that says they have the answer, and this is why I call some people on social media Einstein, and I do it sarcastically. That's just because I just like slapping back every now and then. But folks are being very, very absolute in their thoughts, whether you're a media person, mainly the fans, but a lot of national media people are too. And they're projecting their thoughts as fact when it comes to Travis Hunter. But the coach on one occasion in the past and 2 assistants today told me this, and they said this: we don't know. Meaning they don't know how it's going to look. They don't know how he's going to transition from playing Nico Collins and then running around out there trying to stop him. And then as soon as the ball is punted or kicked off, now he has to go and shake Derek Stingley. They don't know how that's going to go. They've never seen anyone like this before. Not even Deion Champ-Bailey and Charles Woodson did it to this level. They don't know. So if they don't know, how do all of these people come up with these opinions where they know or they think that they understand just how this is going to go when the coaches say, we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know how it's going to look. We just know he's a special person who's very, very talented, rare in that light, has a lot of traits, loves the game, and he's just a good, hardworking person. They're trying to figure it out. Let them figure it out. Or just don't believe some of the stuff that you hear people saying, because I'm telling you, from their mouth, they have said, we don't know. I tell you what you do know. If you want to get smarter about this roster and any roster, check out Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. They break it down like you can't get it broken down anywhere else. Make sure you tap in and make Locked On NFL Scouting your second listen each and every day. I'll be here tomorrow with another podcast. Hopefully I get some of these interviews cut up and I'll let y'all listen for yourselves. Until then, thank you for spending 30 minutes with me today here on a live edition of Locked On Jaguars. We got through it without any mistakes, y'all. Take care. We'll see you later.